Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conejo Valley Visionaries, a weekly podcast spotlighting the people and stories behind some of your favorite Conejo Valley businesses. I'm your host, Christina Denstead. Today, you'll meet Britt Brouhard, the heart and soul behind Naughty Pine Brewing Company, a female-owned and family-operated brewery that's been redefining the craft beer scene in the Conejo Valley since opening in 2020. Britt started her brewing adventure with a simple Christmas gift, a brew-in-a-bag kit for her husband, Justin. Fast forward to 2013 when Britt and Justin seized the opportunity to open a brewery in Maui, balancing red-eye flights and brewing operations across the ocean. After years of experience at Enegren Brewing and a whirlwind of personal challenges, including a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis and the global pandemic, Britt took a leap of faith, leaving her job at Enegren to create Naughty Pine. Inspired by the cozy vibe of a 1920s Peaky Blinders pub, she has turned her dream into a vibrant community space filled with live music, trivia nights, and a unique shop small store featuring local vendors. Join us as we explore Britt's incredible story, her passion for brewing, and how she's built a beloved hub for craft beer enthusiasts in the Conejo Valley. Before we dive into this conversation, I want to remind you, if you love supporting local businesses, please share this episode with a friend. Spreading the word is a powerful way to help our community grow. With that, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Britt Brouhard. In last week's episode, Tyler Cusick, the owner and CEO of Westlake Yoga Co., shared how much yoga impacted his life, both personally and professionally. And I can relate. I got into yoga when I was living in Brooklyn in the early 2010s, and it too not only changed my physical well-being, but also my mental health. If you've been thinking about giving yoga a try, now's your chance. Tyler is generously offering 10% off a drop-in class when you use code PODCAST at checkout. So visit westlakeyogaco.com and use code PODCAST when you book a drop-in class. Maybe you give hot yoga a try or a non-heated class, also a meditation or a Pilates class. There's so many amazing options at Westlake Yoga Co. And all of the teachers have hundreds of hours of training, which really makes it an easy transition if you're trying yoga out for the first time. So use code PODCAST at westlakeyogaco.com when you book a drop-in class and receive 10% off. Hey, Britt, welcome to Conejo Valley Visionaries.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, my absolute pleasure. And I cannot wait to hear your story. You are the first of the breweries to be featured on the podcast, and I am thrilled that it is yours. And I cannot wait to hear how Naughty Pine came to be. But first, what we like to do on the podcast is start from the beginning. And what was it that you thought you'd be when you grow up? What did you study in school? Let's go take it back to beginning days.
Okay. I think as a kid, I always thought I'd do something with kids, either like NICU nurse or elementary school teacher, art teacher, something like that. And then in college, I started out as an art major, switched to science 2 years in, thinking okay, NICU nurse, somewhere along that lines. Got my bachelor's at Cal in exercise science, sports medicine. And then my last year of school, when we had to do all the labs, I realized I really don't like touching other people's bodies. So that became that. So I graduated and then I worked as a nanny to help my husband get through med school. And then it kind of just went from there.
Interesting. So. Art to science, not, I feel like the typical transition. I feel like it's you're in science and then you maybe, you know what, let's go the art route.
Yep. Well, my husband he was a year ahead of me at Cal, so he was already in the exercise science program. And I was like, oh, I kind of like what you're studying. I'll just transfer over and give it a shot.
Okay. So you graduate school, you're nannying, and then what was the transition there? How did you then, I guess, fall into this love of beer obviously science background makes sense, but but then kids, where do we go from here?
Well, 1 year I bought my husband one of those brew-in-a-bag kits that you can get off more beer. And we started homebrewing in the garage, and I liked the science and art of making the recipe. And I liked starting the brew. And then about an hour in, I was like, I'm done. I'm bored. I'm going in the house to watch TV. You finish in the garage alone. And we did that for years. And then we got presented the opportunity to open a brewery in Maui right after college. And that's when I like really fell in love with the whole thing. Like I liked the big machines and like everything that was involved in like big production beer. So that's kind of where it
Okay,
began.
wait a second. How do you get presented with a opportunity to open a brewery in Maui? There's like, were you already expressing your interest in craft beer, or how does that like happen? Go from home
Yeah,
brewing to
my husband met an acquaintance through work. So he's a physical therapist by day. He runs the department of PT over at Sports Academy. And then he's also a professor at Cal Loop in the program we graduated. And he met somebody through work that was like, hey, we want to open, like, me and this other couple want to open a brewery in Maui, but like, we've tried so many other beers and we just love your beer. Would you guys ever consider like going up to commercial scale out of homebrew?
yeah.
And at the time, my husband just graduated USC, so he's working as a PT. I'm nannying. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I was like, sure, Hawaii, that sounds great. And that's kind of how it all began.
Wow. What an opportunity to fall into your lap. So obviously were you home brewing and then selling it at that point, or just giving it to friends and that's kind of how
No,
he tasted the
yeah, just
beer?
giving it to friends. They don't like, you're not supposed to sell it if you're doing homebrew. So it was
Okay.
just more like we would brew for fun, bottle it up, give it away. And that's just kind of how it happened.
And what was the beer that you were brewing at home then? And like, is that still a similar style to what you make today?
It is, yeah. The first beer we ever brewed was an oatmeal stout, and we have one that we bring out every October that's very similar to our original homebrew recipe. And then we would brew a lot of Belgian beer, which we do now. And then our favorite would be the Pilsner, the lager. But that was only brewed every once in a while because it took so long.
Okay. So when you get presented this opportunity to open a brewery in Maui, how does that work? It sounds like you were living in the Conejo Valley at the time.
Yes, we were living in Simi Valley.
Okay.
We were living in Moore Park. I think by that time we'd moved to Moore Park. Both still working our day jobs. And then we would take red eyes out Friday night from work and go and build the brewery or construction and then eventually brewing. And then we'd red eye back in Sunday night to Monday morning because there's like an overlap. And then we'd go straight from the airport back to work. So it was wild. We didn't have a kid then, so there was like no
Okay.
responsibilities.
Right. So a more flexible schedule, but still that is a lot of travel. And was the infrastructure of the brewery there and you were coming in as like the, minds behind the actual brew, or were you also involved in like the creating of all the equipment and putting that all together?
So we actually purchased like what's called a turnkey brewery, where it was a previous brewery space that we came in and turnkeyed, which was basically we gutted most of it and redid it. But
Okay.
it was actually Maui Brewing Company's original brewery in Lahaina. So we bought it from Garrett up there, and then it was more like the brewery hadn't been touched in like 6 months, so we didn't really know what was clean, what was dirty. So it was really a lot of just going in and cleaning, replacing all the rubber, fixing the boiler, redoing the glycol, going through all that, because Garrett gave us a ton of stuff, going through everything he gave us and deciding we want to keep this, we don't want this. And then eventually building out the tasting room, designing all the merchandise. Like I did the initial artwork for the merch, the tap handles, the original stuff that was on the walls. It's not there anymore because it burned down. But yeah, it was a lot of that. And then eventually all the flagship recipes we designed, a lot of the can labels, like all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Did you have to do just like a deep dive immersion into how to do this, or did it come naturally? I mean, all those, I mean, I know you have a science background and even art, but how do you go from there to there?
We studied a lot. My husband was the head brewer for that brewery, and he ran production operations, and I was more like assistant brewer. So he's like a very fast learner and he's very smart. So he basically like just took it all in one big gulp, and then I learned from him throughout the years. So
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So there was a tasting room and you're brewing there. Were you also doing retail out of that brewery, or?
yeah, we have some like taps all across the islands. And there was talks of coming to the mainland, and then COVID hit, and then I don't know, we'll get to it later, but we eventually sold out of our share. And so now it's under new ownership, and I think they're doing pretty good. So
Okay. So yeah, so then let's talk about it. So what year did you open that brewery?
we opened in 2013, I
Okay.
believe, around there. And then once we decided we were done with the flying, because like my husband doesn't fly, and
Oh
we
gosh.
hit some really bad trips to and from Maui, like trips where like our plane couldn't land one time and we were out of gas and couldn't get somewhere else. We were in a hurricane, and then
Wow.
like hit the same hurricane on the way back and lost power before we landed and got taxied in at LAX. Like, so by that time he's like, no more. So then I started flying alone for a while, and we
Okay.
eventually hired a brewer and ran operations overseas. And about that time, we were at St. Patrick's Day party at Enegren, and I had been working in the lab with his dad, like training for all the microbiology stuff, taking it back with me to Maui, building a lab. And so we were just there because we go there all the time. And Chris was like, "Oh, my brewer left. I don't know what I'm going to do. He's moving away." And I was like, "Well, I'm not moving to Maui." And we're both sauced. Like, it's the St. Patrick's Day party. We've both had plenty of drinks. And I'm like, "I'll take the job," which I would never say to anyone. I'm a very quiet person normally. And I just like
Okay.
blurted it out. And then I like way overthought it for hours and hours and hours when I went home. And then a couple days later, he called me and was like, "Hey, are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah,
Wow.
take the
There
job."
it goes.
So, yeah.
It was meant to be. You had to be under the influence to be so bold. But so this was Enegren. They're in Moore Park, right?
Park, yeah.
Okay, great. Yes. And so wow, so he was just happened to be looking for a new brewer and you were ready for a transition yourself.
Exactly.
So was that during COVID or was that pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID, that was in 2016. And
Okay.
then I worked with them through 2020. I worked up to like a lead brewer, and I was running the entire lab at that point. Had my daughter in the middle of all that. Started my master's in the middle of all that, which was chaos. And then COVID hit,
Goodness.
and things went crazy.
So but you still had the Hawaii brewery too.
At that time, yes. At that time, we still had Maui, and we
Okay.
were running like backline brewing operations. We had a good brew team at that point, but still helping with
Okay.
like recipe design and all that. I stepped away from a lot of it once I took on the job at Enegren, just because I wanted my focus to be for them. But yeah, it was fun.
Can I ask, sorry if this is a dumb question, but what do you mean by you were running the lab? What is that?
Oh, okay. So in beer, there's a lot of science involved. So we run like diacetyl tests where basically you distill down a sample of beer and then run it through a VDK test to see if there's what's called diacetyl in the beer. This is like an off flavor that's produced during fermentation and then reconsumed by the yeast during fermentation. If your fermentation does not go properly, you've pulled the beer too soon, you've crashed it too soon, you fermented too hot, this diacetyl won't clean up. And then once it's packaged, it will leave this like butterscotch buttery flavor in your beer, which is not desired. So we would run tests
Okay.
to make sure we've hit that point before we crash the beer and move it on to the next stage. We also did a lot of like gram staining, checking yeast for bacteria, checking viability and health of yeast. So you stain it, throw it under a microscope, do a cell count, see how many are healthy, how many are dead. That tells you how much yeast you need to pitch in order to get the proper fermentation, or if it's under a certain viability, you'll just toss it. So
Okay.
a lot of breweries don't have that scale of lab, which is why I started working with Brad. I can't remember his exact degrees, but he's got PhDs. He's a very smart science guy. So he built his sons this like incredible microbiology lab for beer, something that you would maybe see like at bigger breweries like Fig or Firestone, somewhere like that. So it was really cool. I got to learn a lot. I took a couple biology courses up at UC Davis and used what I learned there back in the lab. So yeah, that's one part I do miss. I don't have like a lab at my spot. It's a lot smaller and it's more like large scale homebrew setup versus like the system I had at Enegren. By the time I quit, like I could sit here on my phone and brew the entire batch of beer and be off canning and filtering and doing other things. So,
Okay. Well, you got the experience. And
yeah.
when, so you were there doing that. You said you mentioned you got your master's. What was your master's in?
I started the first half of it, so I finished through my diploma, did half the master's. It was in brewing science and distilling through Harriet Watt in Scotland. It's like one of the best schools in the world. Charlie Bamforth, the god of beer, god of foam. He's the one who told me to do it because I couldn't afford to not work and go to like an actual master's program that's like on site.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun, but then COVID hit and classes were really expensive and the school was like sort of shutting down, like not shutting down, but canceling classes and whatnot. So I took a break. And then when I went to go back, they asked like a questionnaire and I mentioned I was opening my own brewery and one of my professors reached out and she goes, "You really don't need this like degree right now."
You're living it.
I took a break, which was good because once I started building out the brewery, I realized very quickly there was going to be no time for school anyway. So,
have you been wanting to try out the viral lash lift trend? Or maybe ditching the brow gel and going for a brow lamination? Well, this is your sign to give it a try before the holiday season. As a special offer for our listeners, Brittany Carpenter, the owner of Face and Soul Studios in Thousand Oaks, is offering 10% off any of her brow and lash services when you use code PODCAST at checkout. Book your appointment at faceandsoulstudios.com and try out a lash lift, a brow lamination, or maybe even a lash tint. It's time to invest a little bit in your self-care before the holiday season. Enjoy. So what was that transition like? Was you're at Enegren and then you just decided, you know what, I want to go back to owning my own brewery? Or
no. My husband and I both never thought we would open another brewery again. Like Cohola was fun, but it was a lot. And then in February of 2020, I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. But I'd probably had it for a year before. Like it was to the point where I would have a hard time walking up the brew house steps in the morning and I didn't know what was going on.
wow.
I just knew that, like, I just thought, oh, I'm tired. I have a new baby. It's just fatigue, whatever, leave it alone. And then in March of 2020, the world shut down. And Enegren, like for the most part, we didn't really shut down. Like we definitely, abided by the whole like 2 weeks. And we were still going in intermittently and getting, the work that needed to be done so that the beer wouldn't spoil and all that. But it was just like enough time to really feel, I guess, my body. Like I hadn't stopped in years. I mean, my husband and I, all we've done since high school is work. That's just how we are. And so I definitely felt like, okay, I'm going to need a change somehow. I just didn't know what that change was going to be. And then a couple months later, another acquaintance of my husband approached and said, "It's now or never. Do you think you'd ever want a second spot?" And he came home and he asked me about it. And, it was a hard decision because I was like, I'm on this like great career path with Enegren. Like they're huge now. And we grew tremendously during 2020. And I knew kind of where my path was leading there. And it was a great path, but it was definitely going to lead more towards like production management, less brewing, more just because they're growing and it was going to be too much for one person to do. Sure. And so I said, you talk with this person, you know them, I don't. If you can get it to where it's kind of all ready to go and there's like a plan to present, then I'll kind of make my decision. So I let them work out all the kinks. And then when I decided, I went in and told, the boys the next day. So it was kind of surprising, but I think it was needed. Because now it's like I can push myself and brew twice a week and run crazy hours, knowing that at the end of the week, I can take 2 days to do admin and just sit at home and kind of let my body recover.
So you feel like with that, you have a balance so that your health is also being sort of
Yeah.
prioritized.
I mean, as balanced as you can be running your own
I know,
business.
right?
I mean, I definitely work way more hours than I did before, and I was pulling a lot of hours there, but it's different because I'm only answering to myself now. You know, if my daughter has a last minute school play or a meeting or she comes home sick, it's like I just switch around my days and,
Yeah.
I make it work for myself.
I know I've heard the like saying that when start your own business as an entrepreneur, it's because you want to not work 40 hours for somebody else, but you end up working 80 hours for yourself, which
Yep. Yep.
allows you more flexibility, but also it's not like you're reducing the amount of time you're spending on something.
Yeah, no.
So what year was that? When did you decide the business was ready to open this new brewery?
We I think we signed an LLC in July of 2020 thinking, and I mean, I'm like a very pessimistic person. So I'm like, all right, I'll sign this. You can open this LLC. It's never going to happen.
Okay.
And then in September, it finally was like, okay, like this is going to happen. So we signed all the official paperwork, the operating agreement, opened the bank account, and then signed the lease. And then I stayed about a month at Enegren to kind of help train up the guy that was under me, and they hired like 4 more guys to come in. And then October 2020, I was done and like hit the ground running with Naughty Pine.
That's a very quick timeline though.
Yeah, it happened very fast.
Yeah, especially during like a strange time in the world to be able to like go and make that happen so quickly.
Yeah, it was very weird. It was very strange, and everything was very different in COVID with how you went about opening a business. And so
Right.
it was like learning how to do it all over again.
Was the space something that you found together, or the business partner that came in already had that location picked out?
My husband and I found it together. Basically, our business partner was kind of like the financial backing, and he
Okay.
basically just said, I trust you guys. I mean, we kept him involved all along the way with like decisions and stuff, but he really just had the faith in us to get it up off the ground and running. We looked at like 27 spaces, I think. We could only get 3 landlords to even talk to us because the second you mention alcohol, they were just like, no. And then the first
That
2
response.
that we really liked were like too close to houses. And then this one just kind of fell in our lap. Like we were just driving around, seeing if there was any lease signs anywhere. And we pulled up on this spot, and it had like all this beautiful greenery. It had storefront windows, which you never see in a brewery, and like this whole back alley that had potential for patio. And then when we contacted the property, there's like so many different people. We deal with a property manager. We never see our landlords. But like whatever the company is, the management company that leases the property, the
Okay.
guy called me back within like 5 minutes, had us meet with him within an hour. Like it just, everything was so easy. And that's something that a lot of my friends in the brewing industry said, like, you'll know it's the right spot when everything's easy, because you don't
Okay.
want a landlord that you have to fight with or a property manager that you have to convince. You want them to just be like, yeah, this would be great for us.
They see the vision. Wow. Okay, that's a good tip though. When it's easy, you're going the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the endish, like fall of 2021 or 2020, actually, because
Mhm.
you guys are celebrating an anniversary coming up too, right? Or you just celebrated?
Yes, we have our 3-year anniversary party this Saturday. So I
Okay.
got my doors open in 10 months, which is like unheard of. Usually you're looking at 13 to 20 months for a brewery.
Right, and
Uh,
it wasn't a like a turnkey property, right? You had to build it.
it was a office building. Like I
Okay,
had to
right.
cut the ceilings. I did a lot of the demolition myself. So I ripped out the ceilings and the lights and the ducts and the air conditioning units and all that. And then with with COVID, I wasn't sure how planning was going to go, because you hear horror stories of how long it can take. And usually it's just like you walk into the planning table, you submit your plans, you go back and pick them up. If you have questions, you just walk through the doors. With COVID, they sent everyone home. They shut the doors to the city.
Oh my
So you had to submit for a locker wait 3 days, get a locker code, put your plans in a locker. They de-germed for 24 hours. Then the planner came and picked them up. Then the planner had to submit for the locker, wait 3 days. So it was like this like back and forth. And then nobody was working. So they were shipping our plans to the city of Orange. So then the city of Orange is coming back with all these corrections, like we don't allow this, we don't allow this, we don't allow this. And I'm like, but I'm in the city of TO. My county does allow all this. It was wild, but I it was my only job. So the second they asked for something, I had it back in an hour instead of a week.
Right.
And so and then the city of TO in general was like very supportive, very helpful, helped me push along everything to get it done really quick.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great to hear. Yeah. To think about I was like, a locker for what? But now I forgot about those times where you got to de-germ something. I mean, to think about what we'll look back on with the history of this is pretty
Oh, I
amazing.
know.
And the fact that you were able to do it and get through it and successfully open the space. And you said it only took, you were thinking the timeline would be longer, but it took 10 months.
10 months. Yeah. I was ready to open my doors in 7. Like I had TTB done. I had my ABC alcohol permit. I had my brew house, my equipment, my tasting room, like everything was done.
Yeah.
I got stuck waiting on one tiny little part from my brew house that took until August to get to me. So then I couldn't even start brewing till mid-August. Like
Okay.
that was the biggest thing. The delays on like what you could get that used to be overnight for brewers was weeks and weeks and weeks on end.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the biggest chaos. And we had a few snafus with deliveries and stuff because during the pandemic, people kind of just went crazy. And truck drivers were, I'm not even kidding you, dropping your shipment off at truck yards to pick up a higher paying gig. So
Wow.
like our brew house got left in Portland for a while. And it was just like, what is going on?
Yeah, things that you had to learn how to navigate. And it's so funny. You said you're a pessimistic person, but man, you had to have some level of optimism if you're going through all this and just like moving forward.
Yeah, my husband's the optimist. Like
Okay.
we're yin and yang. He's very just like just breathe, take a minute, it'll be okay. Like whereas I'm like come home hot mess freaking out, and then he's like goose fraba.
Good, good. Well, you got to have that balance. I love it. So when you opened your doors in, it was August or September of 2021?
September of 2021.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, 2020. Yeah. And did, at that point, when you start brewing, then do you have the decor, like is already a tasting room or how does like, was
Yeah,
all the
so
things
I had a tasting room and a patio. It was very bare bones back then. Like our patio was metal chairs and a bunch of electrical spools. Like I have an electrician next door, so they get like wire spools, and they're cute wood spools, but like we ran out of money, like money and time. It was like we got to get the doors open. So like my tasting room was all nice and cute, and then you walk out to the patio and it's just like this empty lot with all these wood spool. It was horrible. It was horrible. Like for first impressions, I'm like, please come back. My patio is so cute. But yeah, we had the tasting room set up enough. We had seats. We didn't have like as much, stuff evolves over time. So we have a lot more like personal touches now, gifts that people have given, pictures up. But like the bare bones of it all was there. Funny COVID story, our glassware got delayed due to just shipping and no staff, like people to not drive it down. So we go to open our doors and it's like midnight the night before, and I'm like, the glassware never showed up. Well, what are we gonna do? We don't, and you couldn't get plastic cups anywhere. Like it was COVID, you couldn't get anything.
Right.
And so somebody put a post out somewhere. I don't even remember, I honestly don't remember how it happened, but next thing I know, I'm in there in the morning getting ready to set up with no glasses. I have no idea what's going to happen. And a couple trucks start pulling up, and I've got Petals and Pints bringing me glasses. I got Naboo Wines bringing me glasses. I've got, I think it was Lucky Fools brought me a bunch of glass. Like people just were coming in with boxes of extra glassware.
I
So it was
love that. The other businesses supporting you. How incredible. How did you get the word out when you first opened? Was it built on your, you know, experience in the community, or was it friends and family?
Yeah, I think it was a mix of both. Like we had a lot of friends and family, and then I've just been in the beer industry for since 2013. So
Yeah.
I've really built a lot of friendships with a lot of local breweries in Ventura County. So a lot of it's just been word of mouth. We didn't do like any newspaper or anything like that, really, because COVID, there wasn't a whole lot to do. You
Right.
just word of mouth and hoped people showed up. Um, but yeah, it was terrifying. It was like 11, like 35, and I'm like, is anyone gonna show up today? And then just before we knew it, the line was down the street and around the corner, and I was like, oh my God, people are coming.
Oh, good. I know that must be a relief. Speaking, I want to step back a second about the decor, because I think when you walk into Naughty Pine, it feels different. It's like it has such a, I don't know, is homey a good word to use, or like cozy? It feels very sort of like authentic. Is that the goal?
Yeah, it's very like people will laugh. Like I've had my bartenders double as babysitters, and they'll come in and be like, wasn't that in your house last week? Or don't you have that in your house too? And I've seen that in your house. Like it's very much like I'm obsessed with Peaky Blinders, the TV show, and like all things 1920s, 1930s. So my vision for the space was like your local English pub,
Mhm.
straight out of the movie. And my friend's a local artist, and I made like this whole Pinterest board of basically 1920s decor, vintage decor, a little farmhouse in boho, which you'll see on my patio, and then literally screenshots of Peaky Blinders scenes and what his office looked like, his pub. And we ended up finding wallpaper that practically matches the curtains in Thomas Shelby's room. Like that's how like to the T the decor is inside. Um and it's very like dark and cozy. It's Edison lighting, black ceilings, black floors because my favorite color is black. um, and when my friend first walked in, she goes, "I don't know about this," because she walked into a shell and it was black ceilings, black floors, great dark gray walls, dark gray walls. And I was like, "No, no, just we're gonna do this. It's gonna work."
Yeah.
Um, we've got a fireplace, which is very rare, a working gas fireplace. It was a facade that was left in there from the previous tenant, and the city said as long as we could build the coated fire escape, we could have a working fireplace. So that was definitely a big selling point for me. Like I died when I walked in and saw a whole
Yeah, I
fireplace
know,
there.
especially if it was an office building before. That's unexpected.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's very much like my house. Like I have signs everywhere, cute little office signs, bathroom signs, dogs drinking water, and it's very loud right
No,
now.
it's okay. No. And you know what I think, with you having a child, I have kids, and when I've gone in there, they like love the books and the
Oh
games, and like
yes, we
that's
have
so
the
charming too.
whole.
Really, it feels like a place you go and enjoy with family. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
No, and that's kind of the goal. I mean, like we definitely you know, we encourage family friendly, but I think we have enough like spots and nooks and crannies that, if you're on a date night, you can sit by the fireplace or in the cozy couches by the stage. If you're here with a group of friends, there's a long table in the middle. We've got fire pits in the back and darts and, all the yard games. And then, yeah, I've got an entire bookshelf full of books for kids, adults. We have our lending library there, which was something I've wanted like ever since we opened. I was like, I want like the lending library where people can grab a book and take it home and bring it back. I want kids stuff. I want vendor stuff, which I have now. I've got my shop small store, which is literally shelves everywhere of local vendor items that you can buy and shop year round inside the brewery. So it's like coffee shop meets brewery meets like tiny craft store. I don't know.
It's a great
It's all
amalgamation
my
of all of
personalities
those.
in one space.
Yeah. And what sort of drew you to open the space in the Conejo Valley? I know, you lived locally, but did you want to stay there? And do you think it's a good idea to have opened the business there?
Yeah, because I came from Enegren and Moore Park, I didn't feel like it'd be right to try and open, in the exact same spot.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be far enough away that I could kind of have my own exclusivity and create my own customer fan base and all that, but not so far that I was far from my daughter's school. Because, I had the sweet spot at Enegren where like, this is Enegren and this is my house and this is my kid's school. And like, I could literally walk to anyone at any time. And so that security for me was really important. We did look at like Ventura because all my like brewery friends are down there, and it would have been definitely fun to kind of be down more in like the niche of like the bulk of Ventura breweries. But I was worried about the drive. So we just kind of started looking. Really, in Newbury Park was our original focus, and we just could not like find a space where the city would let us do it. So then we started inching closer. Didn't want to do Thousand Oaks because of Tarantula Hill. So we're like, okay, let's get a little farther out, but we didn't want to go all the way to the valley. Yes. And then, like I said, we just stumbled upon that spot, and it worked so well that we were like, all right. So, I mean, it doesn't have like the most street traffic. That is one thing we're noticing. Like, we're in between Townsgate and Hampshire, which you would think would have tons of foot traffic, right, but you can't really see us. And there's a lot of like zoning laws with signage, which I'm trying to work with the city to kind of help us out. So we aren't allowed to have like massive big sign. We can only have so many little flags and stuff. So it's a work in progress, but
something to navigate.
We've been doing all right.
Was oh goodness, what is the like brewers or like the breweries? Is it a good sort of camaraderie between different breweries, or is it competitive?
Yeah. It's friendly competition. Like, obviously, you have to be a little competitive, but we're also all friends. So that's why we all do a bunch of collabs together to help bring our customers to you, bring your customers to us. Okay. We all do beer events together. So in general, the industry is very collaborative, and I don't know much about other areas, but Ventura County, we have some of the raddest like brewers and brew families that it's a fun place to be, for sure.
Yeah. And so many, I feel like so many big names coming from here too.
Oh yeah.
That are really, it sounds like it's like established as a brewery county, and like some really awesome beers coming from here.
Oh, yeah.
So in your role now, are your head brewer? Is that right? Do you wear all the hats?
I wear all the hats: head brewer, owner, marketing person, TikTok person, bartender when I need to be,
event planner, right?
Event planner, event coordinator.
No, because I know music is a big part. It seems like you do, events and having, I came to you not only from the brewery, but I know a friend who does brings her food cart to you guys. So it sounds like you really want to involve, there's a music scene, a food scene, all of those things kind of coming together.
Yeah. Community was a big thing for me. Being a place that everyone can come together and share their arts and their creative passions. I don't have TVs. That's a big controversial thing. And I don't hate football. I love football. Like, if we are quiet on a Sunday night, you will catch football on my phone. It's not that I'm have this vendetta against sports. For my space, I just wanted to be unique and different in that aspect. And, it was something that people definitely doubted in the beginning, but I've worked really hard to build that reputation up. And I think it's paying off. We do open mic Tuesdays. Wednesdays is kind of like a mix of board game night. I just threw an open comedy, so we're trying that out for a while. Thursdays is trivia, which is a freaking blast. We are packed almost every week. It's so much fun. And then the whole weekend is full of music because I love music. Music has gotten me through life. So, and I love specifically emo music, like pop punk, new metal, and hey, Linkin Park's coming back. It's all the rage,
I know. I noticed that. Yes. So you're leading the trend. You're ahead of the curve with the.
I wish. To be honest, we threw our first emo fest a year before When We Were Young came back. So I'm like, I did it first.
I know. Seriously. No, but it's amazing when it's you have that as your passion and you're able to see it through in your business. You obviously seem like you're multi-passionate about a lot of things, and being able to bring that together in your space must feel pretty satisfying.
Yeah, it's been great. I've noticed have a really good community around us too. We've got a lot of really great customers, and they've been supportive in any weird, crazy thing I've thrown out that I'm going to try and do. I mean, even like my emo nights, I came home one night, we hadn't even been open 3 months. And I told my husband, so don't freak out. He goes, what'd you do? I said, I'm going to throw an emo night. He goes, oh, babe. He goes, well, it's either going to be great or you're going to scare everyone away. And it was great. Like all my regulars, and mind you, like my demographic is mostly people aged 30 and up with a strong concentration of 55 and older. Like I have grown up adult, like I'm not the hip place that, the 20-year-olds go, but like I've got some solid customers and they all embraced it. They all came out, they knew a lot of the songs, like
Yeah,
even
I
if
mean,
they
that's our
weren't in here, so
time.
they're like, this music takes me back to when I was young. So we
Right.
started making it like a regular thing. So our holiday events, like we do the normal Christmas ugly sweater with our with Lindsay Frey. She's our like one of our resident musicians, and she's our ugly sweater person every year. But then Valentine's Day, Halloween, my birthday, and we do Black Christmas, and they're all themed emo nights. My birthday is always some sort of like Blink 182 theme because they're one of my favorites.
Fantastic.
And then Valentine's Day, Halloween, Christmas have like Nightmare Before Christmas type vibes. And then we do our big, massive music festival every July. So that's like what I do. Everybody else does like a beer festival, an IPA fest, an Oktoberfest. I do emo fest, and that's like my big event.
Right. It's great because it's you're different, and that's a fantastic like differentiator that makes it really special.
Yeah.
What going back to the business, what has surprised you the most about running your own business? I guess this is your second business you've run, but maybe out of this one, what surprises you the most?
Gosh, I don't know. I guess this time around, because we are actually in the thick of it, whereas before we were across seas, so we only saw so much. I don't think I realized how much of an emotional roller coaster running a business is. It's like one day you're so busy you don't have seats, and then the next day you're hearing the crickets outside. And that's like I think been the most surprising is I didn't expect that. And I know it's normal. Like I've talked to a lot of my friends that run businesses and are like, oh yeah, welcome to the club. But like that was like the most surprising for me is just like how it's just a constant roller coaster, and you just have to remind yourself that like, it's going to balance out and to just keep your head on straight.
What are you most proud of?
Oh, most proud of, probably just the atmosphere we've created. You never know if your vision for everything from the no TVs to the music to the decor. I mean, it just like, I guess I'm most proud of how it's all come together. Like it actually feels like a space, if that makes sense. Like when we first opened, it was a very empty shell. Like there was the furniture and everything, but it took a couple years to create the vibe, and I think that's what I'm most proud of. Like you don't stop a lot as a business owner to appreciate your own space, and we had like a date night, like I don't know, 9 months ago because we're working parents, and we finished early and we're like, well, we can't just go home. Like we never get to be out. So we're like, let's go to the brewery. So we popped into the brewery at like 11 o'clock at night when it was closed, turned on the fireplace, poured a beer, and like just sat and enjoyed the space. And it was like, okay, now I see why like people say they like it in here.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Seeing it from like an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you did that. That's good to appreciate all the work that you put in and hitting your stride, and the vibes are good. So you're doing a great thing. What do you think is the most like the biggest challenge?
Social media, to be honest. It is a rough, brutal game. I mean, it's almost like a sick joke that these algorithms can affect your business so much. Yeah. But we will have weeks where people won't show up for things because the Instagram algorithm didn't show them my post or didn't tell them this was happening. And then just keeping up with it. Like, I was the first one in the county to start TikTok in the beer in the world because I'm not very good with customers. Like it's a running joke at the brewery. I have RBF, so people are always afraid to talk to me because I just look cranky. And so I was like, I gotta do
Oh, it's like,
something.
what is RBF? But now I
Oh,
know.
yeah, I can't say it on the podcast. I actually have socks that say bad with customers that I wear regularly so people understand. I was
Sure.
like, I gotta do something to help people understand that it's just the way I look. And usually I'm in work mode. I'm usually brewing when we're open. So I'm just kind of like, I'm tunnel vision.
Yeah.
So I started doing these ridiculous TikToks. And they're exhausting. I'm just like, it's like this sick joke where you're like, I worked so hard to open a business and I spent all my time making TikToks. It's
Yes.
like,
Right. No, and it is interesting. I mean,
it's
it
hard.
is a time where all business owners have to also be content developer, social media stars.
Content
And
creators, even though you're business owners. Yeah.
right, exactly. No, I can
It's,
understand that. And and with the algorithms constantly changing, all this thing, like that's
yeah.
it's a hard landscape to navigate.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's great that you were able to establish this like foundational community. But it is a shame that, like, to your point, if it's not shown, how are people supposed to hear about it? Sometimes it
Oh,
makes it
yeah.
really kind of chicken and the egg a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. We've had nights where we've got killer music and killer food and people don't even see the posts about it. And it's just like that's to me the most challenging part is just navigating the social media and
Yeah.
getting the word out while still making the algorithm happy.
Right. Yes. No, totally understand. What do you see for what's like your vision for Naughty Pine?
Vision. I'm hoping by sometime next year to have a small tabletop canning line. I don't want to do a lot of distro. I did it with Enegren and it was awesome and amazing, but it's a whole different world of production brewing. But I do want to be able to offer like some 4 packs to go, and there are accounts that do prefer cans. And I love art, so I want to be able to design labels. That's like a piece I feel like is missing in like my creative bubble. So that's definitely on the horizon. Another tank because Pilsner is my highest seller by like 75% of my in-house sales, and that was never the plan.
Okay.
Loggers take up tank space for 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and in that time frame, you could have turned 4 other ales. So it's not cost
Hmm.
effective, especially at my size.
Yeah.
I can't get rid of it. My
But
regulars
people want it.
boycott me. Oh yeah, it would be bad. It's a regular at Finney's and like it's a thing. So I can't get rid of it. But I'd like to be able to make more lagers and pump out a few more ales. We have hopes for like a small patio expansion. We're just kind of waiting on landlord approval.
Okay.
But that would entail like a wraparound to the front of the building and some other just nice things. A real patio cover would be nice. We have sunshades right now. They work, but just kind of sprucing up the space a bit. Nothing major. I like my small, tiny space.
It feels intimate and nice and different, like you said.
Yeah.
So before we get into our last rapid fire questions, I am curious. I mean, how common is it? And as a woman, I feel like I can ask this question for the head brewer to be a woman or for a brewery to be owned by a woman. It feels like it's not very
It's
common, but I don't know.
it's not a thing. I think we're up to 11% in the entire world are women. I'm the only woman in the county who is both the owner and the head brewer.
Congrats.
For a long time, I was the only woman in the county, period. Like Monica, she was over at Petals. She joined the county 2 years ago. And then Jess just became head brewer at Seaward this last year. But other than that, it's been, not really a thing.
Do you have any advice for other women who are trying to break into the industry?
Yeah, you just kind of gotta put yourself out there. I know it's scary and intimidating, but if you just walk through the doors and talk to some of these places, you'll realize that at least in our county, Ventura County, these guy brewers are amazing. They are supportive and smart and helpful, and they want to see women in the brewery. It's not like you're shunned away. It's just you just kind of got to put yourself out there work your way into the industry. I mean, I got laughed at a lot in 2013 when I was going up to Maui and I was going to be a girl in the beer industry. Like, girls did not exist back then. There were no girls in LA, no girls in Ventura. Like, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But I'm also like one of those stubborn, like, tomboy girls that was like, screw it, I'm going to make it work.
Good for you, and incredible that you're in rarefied air, and that hopefully that continues to, the percentage continues to increase and it's
Yeah,
more equal in the
I think
end.
it will.
Speaking of Maui, we didn't touch on this, but you mentioned that it was in Lanai, and is the space still there, or?
Yeah, in Lahaina, it is
Lahaina,
not.
sorry.
Unfortunately, the fires last year did burn it down. I know our partners, geez Louise, the new owners have opened up a new space, and one of the neighboring islands was letting them brew, so they got to keep production going. We sold our ownership in 2021 to continue to fund our opening of Naughty Pine, basically funded off that and selling Pokemon cards during pandemic. Like, yep, my husband's got Pokemon cards for days. So we picked a set and sold a set and got a bunch of money to open the brewery.
Okay, that's quite a story. I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, no, we always forget about that little detail. And then when people ask, like, yeah, well, Pokemon cards help fund the brewery. But yeah, it burned down in the fires this last year. So we actually did a couple huge fundraisers to raise money for Maui and try and help them out the best we can. But just kind of wild. I mean, if those fires had hit 1 year sooner, Naughty Pine wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have had the funding to open it. I mean, I had the business partner up until December, who did the initial funding, but we've put in quite a bit ourselves as well because it's just needed. So,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Wow. Timing is everything, So, rapid fire. What is your favorite style of beer?
Oh, German lager, specifically Pilsner, and then Czech dark lager. Oktoberfest would probably be my third favorite. I like lagers. I brew a lot of Belgian beer because I have the demographic for it. I have a lot of customers from like the UK. So they love the Belgian beer, the dark beer. We have to have a dark beer on the board year round, which is like unheard of. But the lagers are for myself. So,
what is your favorite thing to do in the Conejo Valley when you have time to be maybe outside of your business?
Favorite thing to do in Conejo Valley? Gosh, I never get to go out. Probably go to another brewery. I mean, usually after work, we all head out to Tea Hill because it's the only place open that late, grab a beer. Concerts, which aren't in Conejo Valley, but literally my pastime is I go to concerts.
Makes sense. Last question for you is, what's one piece of advice you'd give first-time entrepreneurs?
First-time entrepreneurs, piece of advice, don't go crazy into debt to open a brewery or to open a business. Like, I know people always look at like, oh, I'll just get a loan, I'll pay it off. Try to do it with as little bank debt as possible, which I know is easier said than done. We opened with zero bank debt, but that can be a make it or break it, especially like if something like COVID hits, like that's what'll take you down, in my opinion. So as little debt as possible. It's impossible to open without no debt unless you're just really well off. But definitely the investor partner route is, to me, a smarter way to go, as long as you can find someone who sees your vision and trusts you and you're compatible with. But yeah, the taking on too high a debt to open a small business, especially in California, it's hard. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And thank you so much for all of your time. This conversation has been incredible, and to hear your full journey and to see what you've been able to create is really something special, Britt. So thank you for that. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Make sure to subscribe to Conejo Valley Visionaries wherever you listen to podcasts so that you never miss an episode. And follow us at Conejo Valley Visionaries on Instagram. If you want to share your visionary story on the podcast, send us a DM. We are always open to guest nominations. This episode was produced by Christina Denstead and Justin K. Sloan. Conejo Valley Visionaries is edited by Justin K. Sloan and J. Sloan Productions.